Get that gun! Move along, now! Come on, Ellen! Drive them niggas! Get that gun!
It's 6 a.m. The weather is scorching hot. You have to do harsh labor for another 18 hours involuntarily until sunset. This is what over 4 million African Americans went through on a daily basis for over a century until the Emancipation Proclamation came into play. Although the Emancipation Proclamation was not the end of the Civil War, nor did it bring equality to African Americans, it was the turning point that led to both further down the line. The Civil War was caused by two main factors which interlink: slavery and the economy. The reason why slavery played a big role in causing the Civil War is that slavery split the North and South because the South wanted slavery, but the North didn't. The reason why the South wanted slavery to stay was because the Southern economic giants viewed slaves as property and an investment. They dehumanized slaves, taking away their rights, unlike the majority of the North, which was against slavery. The Civil War began after years of tension due to slavery and was a bloody series of events, lasting 4 years between 1861 till 1865, resulting in approximately 620,000 dead citizens and soldiers, which was 2% of the population at the time. The war sparked just as Abraham Lincoln took office. It was between the North and South of the United States. The Civil War came to an end after a bloody 4 years after the Confederate Army surrendered to the preservation of Union in the country. The war overall was mainly fought over rights, the power held by the federal government, and slavery. During the Civil War, though, there was a specific document known as the Emancipation Proclamation. Was an order issued by Abraham Lincoln on the 1st of January, 1863, with the goal to free slaves in specific states and eventually all of them. The document stated that slaves in Confederate states were to be freed. The states which directly freed slaves due to this were Alabama, Arkansas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, parts of Missouri, parts of Tennessee, and parts of Virginia. You may notice that no states from the borders were mentioned in this list, although they were a part of the Union. This is due to the fact that Abraham Lincoln considered them loyal states. Therefore, the commands of the Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to those states. The Emancipation Proclamation was a crucial document that allowed Abraham Lincoln to gain control of the rest of the southern states and win the Civil War. To summarize, the Emancipation Proclamation had a significant instant impact due to the fact that it freed all slaves in states which were a part of the Union other than the border states, which was a very good step in the right direction. The end goal of releasing the Emancipation Proclamation was to free all slaves, but that's not what it exactly did directly. It left approximately 800,000 African Americans enslaved. The reason why the Emancipation Proclamation is still so significant is because Abraham Lincoln fortified his orders against slavery, which eventually led to the demise of slavery. The reason behind Abraham Lincoln's choice of not attempting to free all slaves instantly comes from the idea that he wanted to maintain support from states across the border, allowing them to maintain the Union better, which led to him eventually winning the war with his newly found fortification. The Emancipation Proclamation freed around 80% of all slaves in the United States at the time, and was the final piece to solve the hugest exploitation of African Americans. Although this was not all the slaves, it was definitely a huge margin of slaves in the United States. 12 states which were a part of the Union were some of the biggest in the entire country, and really allowed Abraham Lincoln to assure the Civil War ending in his favor. Not only did it provide a good upper hand for the Union, it also lifted the spirits of black citizens, showing them that hope still exists for them, which is when some of freed slaves joined the Union to help fight for the right cause. He later assembled another document which really put the nail in the coffin for slavery, called the 13th Amendment is a constitutional amendment passed by former President Abraham Lincoln by the end of the Civil War. Its goal was to end the Civil War once and for all, to put a stop to the 4 years of conflict. To do so, it more importantly ended slavery in the United States, once and for all, putting an end to this horrific and controversial chapter of American history. The amendment stated that no slavery shall be tolerated in the United States under no circumstance. Unlike the Emancipation Proclamation, which only freed slaves in the states part of the Union, it applied to the whole of the United States. The Civil War overall resulted with over 90 billion current-day dollars worth of damage and 4 million slaves freed after 4 years of financial and a century's worth of physical torture. Majority of Southern economic powers were paid out for the lost financial damage. From losing the slaves, the agriculture industry was doomed because there were no more people to exploit. The war sadly also resulted with the loss of 2% of the country's population during that time period. It also combined the North and South parts of the United States and resulted with the newfound military and federal power. This started the beginning of a new era in American history where African Americans would go on to live alongside white Americans years after, which just proves the sheer importance of the Emancipation Proclamation. An example of this would be civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr., who went on to talk about the Emancipation Proclamation in his famous I Had a Dream speech, where he credited the Emancipation Proclamation and its impact and used it along with his charisma to inspire millions across the country to eventually shatter racism alongside the already shattered slavery to provide the long-awaited rights to all African Americans and ensure being them treated the same as any other human, no matter their race nor color.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not.
Another example of someone influenced by the Emancipation Proclamation would be the loud yet meaningful Malcolm X, who is fierce and not afraid to stand up for what he believes in. When police brutality started to become more common, specifically for black people, he was one of the pioneers in speaking up about it and trying to put a stop to it, what would have been a normal thing to see prior to the Emancipation Proclamation, as this was the first step in a direction to end all racist acts once and for all.
Getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleed?
Overall, the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by Abraham Lincoln on the 1st of January 1863. It freed 80% of all slaves in the United States, which gave Lincoln the legal upper hand by solidifying the rule that slaves should be free in the states that he had control in at that time. This led to the Union winning the Civil War after a bloody 4 years of fighting between the North and South. It also caused the eventual shattering of racism nationwide and provided African Americans the rights that they also deserve. This also led to the equality of the rights of African Americans by breaking the chains of slavery.